Grade 11, Subject Pakistan Studies, SLO 331. Explain the concept of good governance. At the end of this lecture, it is expected that the student will be able to explain the concept of good governance. So, in this SLO, we will discuss the concept of good governance. So, let's start. Good governance is the exercise of political, economic, and administrative authority to manage a nation's affairs. It is the complex mechanisms, processes, relationships, and institutions through which citizens and groups articulate their interests, exercise their rights and obligations, and mediate their differences. Dear student, good governance encompasses every institutions and organizations in the society, from the family to the state, and embraces all methods, good and bad, that a society used to distribute power and manage public resources and problems. Dear students, good governance is therefore a subset of governance wherein public resources and problems are managed effectively, efficiently, and in response to critical need of society. Effective democratic form of governance rely on public participation, accountability, and transparency. So now we will discuss the core characteristics of good governance. The first one is participation. All men and women should have a voice in decision making, either directly or through the legitimate intermediate institutions that represent their interests. In such broad participation is built on freedom of association and speech, as well as capacities to participate constructively. The second one is rule of law. Good governance require fair legal frameworks that are enforced impartially. Dear student, it also requires full protection of the human rights, particularly those of the minorities. Impartially, enforcement of the laws requires is independent. Now let me discuss the transparency. Transparency means that the decisions taken and their enforcement are done in a manner that follow rules and regulations. It also means that the information is freely available and directly accessible to those who will be affected by such decisions and their enforcement. Dear students, it also means that enough information is provided and it is provided in easily and understandable forms and media. Next is responsiveness. Responsiveness means institutions and processes try to serve all stakeholders. The fifth one is consensus oriented. Good governance mediates differing interests to reach a broad consensus on what is in the best interest of the group and where possible on policies and the procedures. Equity and inclusiveness. Dear students, society's well-being depends on ensuring that all its members feel that they have a stake in it and do not feel excluded from the mainstreams of society. So this requires all groups, but particularly the most vulnerables have opportunities to improve or maintain their well-being. Now let me discuss the effectiveness and efficiency. Dear students, good governance means that processes and institutions, procedures, results that meet the need of the society while making the best use of resources at their disposal. So, the concept of efficiency in the context of good governance also covers the substantial or we can say sustainable use of the natural resources and the protection of the environment. Accountability, decision making in government, the private sector, and the civil society organizations are accountable to the public as well as to institutional stakeholders. This accountability differs depend on the organization and whether the decisions is internally or externally to an organization. It's very simple. The last one is strategic vision. Leaders and the public have a broad and a long-term perspective on good governance and human development, along with a sense of what is needed for such development. There is also an understanding of the historical, cultural, and social complexities which that perspective is grounded. So it's all about the characteristics of the good governance. So let me conclude these points. Um, Dear students, it should be clear that from the previous discussion that good governance is an ideal which is difficult to achieve in its totality. Very few countries and societies has come close to achieving good governance in its totality. However, to ensure sustainable human development, actions must be taken to work towards this ideal within the aim of making it a reality. Thank you so much for joining.